Welcome to the Referrals Podcast, the show designed to help everyone from the solopreneur to the Fortune 500 company win the referral game. If you want to build a company with an army of ambassadors and raving fans who speak highly of you and refer you willingly, you are in the right place. And now, here is your host, Michael J. Maher.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Referrals Podcast. Over 220,000 downloads. Are you kidding me? I am so proud of you listeners for hanging with us, listening in. You were with us through the daily dose. You were with us through the summits. You were with us through COVID, through the quarantine, through nearly 200 episodes. I just want to say thank you to all of you. And one of the leading questions that we get is, what's happening in the real estate market? What's happening in the market? And this is the question that not only applies to real estate agents, but this applies to every consumer in America. This also applies to a lot of out-of-country investors. This applies to almost everyone, and I can't wait for you to get the information today. Before I bring on our special guest today, I want to give a huge shout out to Sylvia Grady out of Hawaii. She is in the Maui area in Hawaii, and she took our Summerfest 30-day challenge. For those of you that are not familiar with Referco, we are the home of the 30-day challenge. We have lots of fun 30-day challenges. Every day you get an email, a video, some type of educational tip. It's something you can put into play in literally 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and it produces referrals. If you're interested in that, check us out at joingengen.com, joingengen.com. Join GenGen, join the generosity generation today. Sylvia says, I absolutely loved the Summerfest 30-day challenge. Today's challenge was silence, and I'm still struggling with the quiet time in the morning. How many of us can relate to that? And I'm struggling with getting this right, but hopefully we'll get the hang of it eventually. Practice makes perfect, right? I love the week structure, and I love how organized everything can be with scheduling your week, meals, exercise, and everything else. I have been practicing that for a while and definitely continue. The good news is I just got a referral. Boom, drop the mic. That's awesome. Sylvia, congratulations, and thank you for being a participant in the Summerfest Challenge, and thank you for being a member of the Generosity Generation and listening here on Referrals Podcast. One quick thing, tickets are going fast for Referral Mastery Summit. It is at the Hilton Scottsdale Resort and Villas. Here's the thing, some really, really big announcements coming out about Referral Mastery Summit over the next couple of months. I'm telling you, you must be there. You must be there. Somebody might walk away with $100,000 cash in their pocket. How the heck is that going to happen, right? You want to earn six figures? How about you earn six figures at one event? We'll show you how. Maybe not show you how. At the very least, you'll get a chance to win it. So I love that. I love all of this that's going on around Referco and RMS right now, the podcast, everything. What I especially love is that we get a chance to talk to great people. Today, we get a chance to talk to David Childers. Again, he was one of our first people we called during the Daily Dose. What the heck is going on with COVID, quarantine, and everything that's going on in the marketplace? We called him. He came on and literally wowed the crowd. It was amazing. We have him on today. For those of you that don't know David, I just want you to know that you've been living under a real estate rock for way too long. It's time for you to know David Childers. David is the VP of Content and Marketing at Keeping Current Matters. You need to go check out keepingcurrentmatters.com. And if you want to try it, you can try it at TryKCM.com. TryKCM.com. Listen, what Keeping Current Matters does, it works with real estate agents' personal research department. They are literally their personal research department. Don't call them an economist. What they do, in my opinion, is even better and bigger than an economist. They take all of what the economists are saying. They actually add reality to it. No comment on economists there. They add the reality to it, and then they make it look so pretty, so good. These are shareable things that you can put out to your database that will help them know that you're the expert in the marketplace, which helps you get referrals. So beyond just keeping agents aware of market trends, Keeping Current Matters aims to equip agents with the knowledge they need to stay relevant to their clients, past clients, database, and to be better equipped to answer any question that comes their way. Let's welcome to Referrals Podcast, Mr. David Childers. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Michael. I'm excited to be back on. It's been a few months since we were together, and glad for the invitation. You were talking about Keeping Current Matters, and thank you for that shout out. If you were in our office with me today, you'd see this big wall that says, "We believe every family should feel confident when buying or selling a home." And that's what we aim to do, to give you the professional that's working with buyers, sellers, those thinking about buying, selling, all the information they need. So excited to be with you.
And you're the best at it. I really, truly believe that. I'm not just saying that. I mean, you are basically a quarterly guest on this show because we know that the market changes very rapidly.
Absolutely.
And every quarter there is something to talk about. We talked before the show. We've got a couple of new things that are out there right now that maybe we couldn't talk about midsummer or even in the spring. So let's just jump right to it, right? Sure. Let's talk about the market. There are rumors of it cooling off a little bit out there. Is
Sure.
it really cooling off? And is that just not a really good question to even ask?
Well, I'll tell you this. It's probably right now as we speak, the biggest question we're getting. Okay. There are a couple of big questions we're getting. I'll share them with you, but that is a big one. A lot of questions about, is the market cooling off? What's happening right now? And I'll say this as I position my thoughts, and maybe we'll talk about this from a buyer's perspective. We'll talk about this from a seller's perspective, and give you that answer. But when you go out and you flip on the news, or however you consume news, read an app or whatever, you're going to see headlines right now that say the housing boom is over. And I always ask about that. If they say the housing boom is over, does that mean it's a bust now? Right? I can tell you this: any of your clients that are reading that are going to think that. Right. Home sales are down. This is happening. So that is out there in the market, no doubt. And I want to kind of unpack that over a couple of minutes. But let's agree to this as we start. The old saying, you remember it: perception is reality.
Oh yeah.
That's true in all of our lives. And if that's being said out there, and that's perception, that is reality for buyers and sellers. Oh, by the way, our perception defines our action. If I were to walk out of here today and go step off to a curb, see a car coming, I step back, and my perception of danger has informed my action. And that's I think we're seeing a little bit of that in the real estate market. And I'll start to talk about that. But if we think about that question with buyers, let me tell you what is happening. We got a lot of people listening. I'm going to share a couple of visuals. I'm going to give all these to you to refer code. People can get those and use those. I want you to use them in helping to understand this. But National Association of Realtors publishes each month a buyer and seller traffic map. Okay. Let me tell you what's happened over the last several months with buyers. They've started to pull back in traffic. Okay. There are a couple of reasons and a couple of questions we get because of that. First one is, okay, if buyers are pulling back, is that a bigger signal in the market? Or is this seasonality that we typically see over the summer in the real estate business? My answer would be twofold. First of all, do I think people are going on vacation this summer or have gone on vacation this summer? Absolutely. My money says if they can take two, they're going to take two, because you couldn't take one last year. The other thing that we know is that buyers are looking at prices right now. They're looking at the situation going, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I want to do this. Homes are appreciating quickly. I've tried to buy a home and I've gotten shut out. I'm looking at what's happening. I'm getting frustrated. You've heard this term, buyer fatigue, has been out there. I believe that's alive and well. Now, I don't think that is a long-term cycle, but I think we're in a little bit of a season where we see buyers going, I'm not sure. Now, if I were to give you a visual, I'm going to share something real quick to position this. And it's a graphic from Showing Time, because I think this is critically important in how we, can you give me permission to share the screen?
100%. And just so everybody knows that's listening to this, is you can also go to our YouTube channel and you can have the ability to see his visuals, but also we are going to have it available for you as a download. So we will make sure that you get access to these, and we'll try to describe it as much as we can, because I know a lot of you walk and listen to this. So we will describe the graphic as well as we can.
Yeah, so I'm going to share this quick graphic, and we'll kind of walk through it. So what you see right here are monthly showings as recorded by showing time. And if you're listening to this, the moral of the story is showings are kind of humming along. The beginning of last year, we go through COVID, they dip down, they come back over the summer. We pack a ton of business into the summer of last year. They kind of even out and come back up at the beginning of this year. And since May, we've seen this slow tick down in buyer activity relative to showings. Why is this important? Showings are a leading indicator. If we're not showing homes, people aren't looking. Those don't turn into contracts, so don't turn into pending deals and ultimately close transactions. And we are seeing this. But if you go back and you're listening to this right now, and you go look at the visual, here's the important thing to remember. There's a yellow line across the graphic that shows where we are today. And even though things have slowed, we're ahead of where we were last summer. So are things slowing down? They have slowed a bit, but we're ahead. This is the analogy I would give you in this scenario: is you're flying down the highway at 85 miles an hour and you see an officer up on the hill there, and you slow down to 65 or 70 miles an hour and you think, gosh, I'm creeping along. You're still doing the speed limit, or maybe slightly ahead of the speed limit in that scenario. And so I would position the slowdown that way. Yes, technically we are seeing it, but ahead of what we saw.
I love it.
Last year.
I love the analogy too, because it really is that way. Last year, we were going about 60 miles an hour during June and July. Mm-hmm. And then in March and April of this year, we were going 85. Like it was Las Vegas highway time, baby.
Yep.
And then we saw the officer, or we came up into a little bit of traffic, and now we're going 65. Yeah. And not 60. We're actually going 65. We're still even ahead of last year's pace. I have to say that it has to be some seasonality too. Is last year, it was a little hard to judge. And then this year, like, there is actually back to school. Right. Families are actually going back to school, and I can tell you, I can attest, and David can too, is, listen, it's when you're going back to school for the first time in 2 years, essentially, you are busy. It's like a renewed rut that you are trying to establish, a renewed habit. So a lot of people are probably suffering from that too, and they've got their house, or they're just busy with going back to school. So we may even see an uptick from that. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
I think right now, I think you're right. I think there's some seasonality in that. Yeah. Let me tell you, if I was talking to somebody who's been thinking about buying or has been in the hunt and maybe is a little bit frustrated, let me tell you what this spells for me is opportunity. Mm-hmm. There are folks out there saying, we're not sure we want to do it. If you're serious, now is the time. What I would be saying to a buyer right now is, I believe, and I'll talk about this more over the next few minutes, is we're in a turn in the market coming out of post-COVID, and I know there are concerns right now, but we're starting to see a turn in that serious buyers are committing right now, saying we want to get in, and the projections for appreciation going forward are very, very strong. So I think there is opportunity in the market. I do think there's a slight turn, and there is truth to some of the slowdown. We just need to understand the truth.
Yeah, I love this, because this is coming out in August of 2021, and you're exactly right. There is opportunity right now. I mean, too often we hear agents that are almost like crying wolf when they're now is the time to buy, now is the time to sell. Right. Well, data shows that this really is an opportunity to buy. When there's less competitors in the marketplace, it's a better time to buy. So right. You do have a month window here, with everybody going back to school and maybe a little distracted by school. And if you're a focused, serious buyer, now is your time. I absolutely love that.
Yep. If we were to kind of switch this conversation to sellers, and so what's happening with sellers? I mentioned we started off, we talked about the NAR traffic map. So NAR, National Association of Realtors, looks at buyer traffic. They also look at seller traffic. What is seller traffic? That's purely people putting their homes on the market. So let me give you a couple of facts of what is happening right now with sellers. If you were to look at those maps as compared to buyers, you're seeing the inverse happen. In the spring, we saw very weak seller activity. And as we've gone through the summer, we see more and more seller activity. Here's how I describe that trend. And it's simply this. It's the I can sell my home for what trend. The average equity, according to CoreLogic, in this country of a home with a mortgage on it is $216,000. Think about that. $216,000, the average amount of equity. The past year, that's grown by just over $33,000. And what do we know coming out of this pandemic? Home has become much more important to people than any time in my lifetime. You know, we've gone to school at home, we've worked out at home, we've eaten at home, we've worked at home, we've done everything. And, you know, I hope it's the last pandemic that we face, you know, in our lifetimes. But people have clearly said, if this happens again, I want to be set up, I want my space. And oh, by the way, I'm willing to pay for what me and my family need. We need a backyard. We need a little bit more space. We need this. We need that. We are seeing that trend happening with sellers right now. Folks that maybe there's truth to it too, that we've come into the summer and sellers feel a little bit more comfortable now that, you know, folks are getting vaccinated. We're seeing immunity. And I know there's a lot of opinions on that, but they are feeling more comfortable. When last fall, people were like, I don't want to bring a bunch of people into my home. And if I were to kind of draw a word picture for you, typically what we see in the market, and I'm just going to remind everybody on here of what you already know, is listings start to rise in the first part of the year. They peak around May and they kind of fall off, makes an arc in the year. If you were to look at every year for the past 10, 20, 30 years, whatever it is, that's typically what happens in our business. Well, what happened in 2020 is we started off, we're coming up, then COVID hits and we drop like a rock, and then we come back. What's happened this year, though, is we've started out slow and we're building momentum. So we're actually, when that arc would be coming down, typically in the number of homes coming to market, it's actually rising. And I believe over the next several months, we'll see that continue to rise as more and more people go, hey, we can sell our home for that. You know, the number one question I'd be asking people right now is, do you know what your home is worth?
Oh, I love
and
that.
Be prepared for people to be shocked and go,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. I will tell you that I've had that conversation with 5 people in the last week and a half, probably 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one was shocked at how much they could get for their home on the market. And
Right.
I was being conservative with the conversation.
Yeah.
Every time it was like, oh, you don't think we can get that, do you? You know,
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, I do. You know,
Yeah.
here's
I
like 4 or 5
think
things
it's
that look
happening.
like they can make it.
Here's the interesting thing. It's happening all over the country in just
Yeah.
about every market, you know, certainly at different degrees. And there are some markets that are very, very hot right now. And they kind of form this line outside of California. A lot of people coming out of California into other markets. Here's what I would say if I were talking to a seller right now as more inventory comes back. This is key. Don't be too unrealistic with pricing. We typically see a market like this where sellers are trying to catch the market, right? I got this house, it's worth this, but we're going to try to price it here. So we will see those price reductions in areas that are probably overpriced because we're seeing more of that inventory come to market. You know, you mentioned something before. We never want to convince somebody to do something they don't want to do, but I think we're in a point right now that if you wait, you miss out on an extremely attractive market to sell your home. So I think there are a lot of indicators right now to say, you know what, if you've been thinking about it, if it's right for you, that you need to go ahead and put the home on the market, because the forecast going into the end of the year and moving into next year is that appreciation will moderate, not depreciation. There's nobody calling for depreciation, but homes will not continue to appreciate at the rate they have been, as 2 things happen. More inventory comes in the market, and the outlook overall is for interest rates to rise. So as those 2 things start to happen, we will see moderation in prices.
Yeah, I love that. And I love speaking to the seller realistic like right now that, hey, listen, this is a fantastic market. Inventory's rising, interest rates are rising. So maybe this is the opportunity to get out there and the message to the agents is spot on. Like I said, the last 5 conversations I've had, every single one was surprised at the value of their home. And that other point that you made about the cocooning or the nesting, staying home is spot on, and I've experienced that. We've made home improvements to our home because it's like, hey, listen, if we have to stay here, we should probably enjoy every moment and every part of our home.
Right.
So that's a big part, and it's so true. So you talked a little bit about some of the trends that are going on in the marketplace. So can you elaborate on some of those trends, like affordability and migration, prices, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Let me lay out some maybe high level trends. I'll run through them quickly and we can go deeper on any of them that we want to. I think affordability is a concern that many have, and it typically in our business comes out this way. And it maybe we think this, maybe somebody we're working with thinks this, and it comes out as homes just aren't as affordable today as what they used to be. Now, affordability is based on 3 things that's measured: prices, interest rates, and wages. That's what makes up affordability. That's what the dollar will buy in the market. Now, there is another conversation on affordable housing. That is a different conversation. It typically refers to the number of homes on the lower end of any market, and we absolutely need that in every market, in every town across this country. But as we look at affordability measured by the Housing Affordability Index, the question you always want to ask, and you can go to Keeping Current Matters and get this data, is as compared to when? As compared to when? So the last couple of years, homes are actually less affordable today than the last couple of years. That is true. Well, compared to the housing crisis, yeah, they're less affordable because so many homes had depreciated in value. But if you look at any time prior to the housing crisis, homes are actually more affordable today. So I think it's important that we have perspective in our business to help people through the affordability question. And no doubt, we're still seeing great long-term financing for homes and mortgages right now. And I said the overall outlook, like I mentioned, is for rates to rise. Affordability will get worse before it gets better relative to housing, but we're still in a very good place relative to that. So I think that's a big trend that people are concerned with.
And I will tell you that the way you broke it down with the 3 factors, right? Prices, interest rates, and wages. And that's probably they have a little myopia around wages, right? That what they're thinking is my earnings have not gone up as much as the real estate prices have gone up. But the factor there are the interest rates, right? So the interest rates are still low, which makes up for maybe the wages not keeping up with the price increases. So we have great affordability right now.
Let me give you 2 ways to dismantle that conversation. Somebody comes up with that. First of all, in our business, I think this is something we need to be educated on, and maybe even just internally go, okay, I want to understand that so it doesn't ruin my day. The other question that comes up is, are home prices appreciating as fast as wages? That is a big question in the country today. Here would be my response. Do you commit 100% of your income to your mortgage payment?
Yeah, no.
You don't?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know anybody that does. And
right.
If they have a loan, they definitely don't.
Right. So if we take the average debt on a home and a mortgage payment and compare that to an increase in wages, you get into a much more manageable picture. So keep that in mind as you look at that, because that can be deceiving for a lot of people, and they can easily go, well, homes are appreciating this much and wages just aren't. Well, you don't commit 100% of your wage to the mortgage payment. And no doubt we're seeing an inflationary period and a lot of questions about that. But I think it's being educated me, and we'll speak to that. It's critically important. The other pieces that I think are trends that folks have asked about and want to talk about is, hey, are we going to see a foreclosure crisis? We can go deeper on that if you want to. These migration patterns that we're seeing across the U.S., things there. So tell me what's the best one that you're hearing?
Yeah, I want to go foreclosure first, 100%, because of the you can't evict someone, the renter's not making the payment. That means maybe the investor or owner of the home is not making the payment. So what are you seeing in that arena?
Yeah, so I can give you the latest stats on forbearance. So there's two things right now that are big pieces in our business. First is forbearance. That's the tool that was given to homeowners to help weather the storm relative to their housing. The other is the eviction moratorium that's out there. So that's probably the biggest piece in the news we're seeing right now. So federally, we've said, hey, we're going to lift this. Now we're seeing states and counties say, hey, we're going to pause it here in our area. Always remember the lion's share of the eviction moratorium pertains to renters. I don't want to discount that. I don't want to say that's not important, but that's not going to dramatically affect the housing market. Okay. It's a lot of renters, and we want to be concerned for those people. And that is a crisis for them, but let's understand it from our business there. So what we know right now is that 3.5% of mortgages are in forbearance. That equates to about 1.9 million people, off the high last year of 8.5% of mortgages, and over 5 million people in forbearance. So we've come down dramatically. Now here's the story that you're not hearing in media and in other things out there. As of just a couple of weeks ago, the most latest information, 44% of people that have come out of forbearance have paid off their back payments in full. 44%.
That's fantastic.
When's the last time you turned on the TV or watched news and they said, hey, the great news about forbearance is half of the people didn't need it? That's the reality. And I'm not saying those people took it incorrectly. That might be the small business owner that says, I don't know what tomorrow holds, so I'm going to take it as an insurance policy, but they didn't need it. 38.7, call that 39%, went through a workout with their bank. Back when we did this, we were together on the front end of COVID. We said banks and the federal government are going to do everything they can to avoid a housing crisis, just because of the sheer, pain of 2008. And what are you seeing? We're seeing modifications. We're seeing rate and term refinances. We're seeing deferrals tack it in on the back. That's 39%. So 4 out of the 5 people that went into forbearance, they're coming out good. I'm not saying some of those people won't be in trouble. They will, no doubt. Foreclosures and things like that happen in housing. We don't wish it upon anyone, but it happens. Now, there is, roughly, it's a little bit less than 20% that are coming out that don't have a workout plan, that don't have, some type of loss mitigation strategy with their bank. Those are the ones that we're concerned about. Professionals, experts have pegged that number somewhere between 200,000 and 300,000 households. A couple of things about that number. That's a lot of people, no doubt. To put that into perspective, between 2006 and 2014, 9.3 million people went into foreclosure. 9.3 million. We're talking about here to 200,000 to 300,000. And oh, by the way, what do we know is happening? Last year, homes appreciated by 10%. This year, homes are appreciating by 10%. I don't see mathematically where somebody goes into foreclosure. It'll happen. It's going to happen, no doubt. But Black Knight just came out and said 96% of the people in foreclosure have at least 10% equity. They can sell their home, pay a commission, put some money in their pocket, and move on to, from the crisis they and their family are facing. But here's my fear. If we think, or we have buyers that think this train of foreclosures is coming, and I'm going to wait and scoop up all this property, I think they're going to be sorely disappointed when that doesn't happen. And it's a big trend right now that I think we need to be vocal about in the business.
100%. I love the way you put that, and it just makes sense. You're not going to walk away from a house that you could sell and make, even break even on it. You're going to sell it before you get foreclosed on it. Just mentally, you're going to do it. And enough people are educated about foreclosure that they understand that if they do go into foreclosure, it's going to affect their credit long term, versus if you sell it and walk away and maybe, you know, earn $1,000, $2,000 or whatever it may be, you're better off. You know, you're going to make it. So there's just too much equity in the marketplace right now, and too much demand.
Yeah, can I say one thing about that? Right.
Yeah.
You want to brag about selling somebody's home over list price? Brag about selling somebody's home that's in a bind. You know what I mean? That needs that help. I don't think this is an issue right now that people, so to speak, are going to come knock on our door and say, hey, I'm having this issue. It's something that's very private. Nobody wants to go out there and talk about it. I think we need to be talking about this in the business. We need to make a video. We need to get out there and say, hey, if you are going through something, I want you to know that I'll sit down and talk with you and give you what your options are. You know, by the way, homes are selling all through the summer. Half of the offers on homes have been above list price nationally. So there is opportunity for those folks. People will be impacted, but I'll tell you this, I believe we'll look back on this year and see less foreclosures in this country than we've seen in a long, long time this year. And it's not what's being perpetuated out in the world and media and things like that.
Yeah, love that. Let's talk migration.
Yeah.
Right? You're seeing some migration in the market that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of migration trends that we're starting to track. You know, you go back to COVID and everybody said everybody's going to get out of a city and the cities are dead. The reality is the cities aren't dead. The delta in cities that we saw through COVID is there were people that left cities. They said, I want to be in a less dense environment. I don't want to get on an elevator. I don't want to, that happened. Didn't happen overwhelmingly, but it did happen. Where the delta became is we didn't see a lot of people moving into the city. Okay. So there's opportunity in cities right now. I think you're seeing people move back in and people say, hey, that's a long-term decision I want for myself or my family, whatever the case may be. So that's one trend that we're seeing is the thought that were they dead? No, they're not dead. And, you know, maybe some good pricing in some areas. The other is a more national trend of people looking for movement out of high cost markets into low cost markets. You know, you can go Google right now, the Great Resignation, and a lot of studies being done on people that say, hey, I can now, you know, maybe live in a different area because my employer doesn't require me back in the office. And I don't think that's an overwhelming trend of everybody doing that, but there's more people doing it than were 2 years ago. And coming out of COVID, there are a lot of people that say life's too short and I don't love what I'm doing. I'm rethinking this now because of all the things COVID is brought to us. So we're seeing that as a trend. And you're certainly seeing there's a national trend that's been kind of named birds of a feather. You're seeing people say, hey, I want to go to a state that I feel like is more aligned with where I'm at politically. I want to go to a state that's more aligned where what I believe from a tax basis. Things like that are happening across the country. I think right now you want to talk about referrals. Here would be my question. How connected are you out across the country? How is that going to play into your business? You know, I mean, I think that is going to become a trend of great people in our business across the country. Hey, I have a connection out on the West Coast and somebody's moving to my town, vice versa, and I'm able to do that business.
I love that. You know, as you know, I wrote about in 7L how we evolved from the ego era to the generosity generation. Ego era was we're number one. You know, it's ABC is A, always B, C, closing, right? Always be closing, the old sales mentality, intimidation, that kind of thing. And we went into the generosity generation where, you know, the new slogan is not, we're number one, it's we're here to help.
Right.
And the new ABC is A, always B, C, connecting, always be connecting. And connecting to agents abroad is a big part of what we talk about in Gen. And, you know, the other thing is letting your database know that you have this conglomeration of agents, you know, around the country so that you can refer that out when they go. We had a whole campaign called We Can Help Anyone Anywhere, We Can Move Anyone Anywhere that we would send out to our database. And when they had a relative who was moving from, let's say, Dallas to Denver, they knew that we would interview agents in Dallas for their friend. And then we would interview agents in Denver for their friend to get them the best buyer's agent. And that was a huge part of our business and continues to be maybe even a majority of our business right now, ever since we moved. So that needs to be part of everybody's forever client strategy that we talk about is, are you letting your database know that you have a community of real estate agents that you mastermind with, you know, they're top producers and are willing to help your clientele? I mean, some of the easiest money you can make in real estate is referring out buyers and sellers to great agents.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think you've been ahead of this and been talking about it for a while. I think going into next year and the coming years, we're going to see more and more of that. The agents that are really good there and have built that base are going to be able to capitalize on that. And I think it's going to be a trend that we're going to see more and more of.
I love it. So we talked a little bit about what an agent should be doing right now. What else should an agent be doing right now? One of the things that I've found interesting that I'm seeing in the marketplace is there's buyer fatigue where they've gotten outbid and they've gotten a little tired with the heat of the summer or whatever it may be. And now we're here to tell people that, hey, listen, now's an opportunity to maybe get over that buyer fatigue and jump back into the marketplace because there's opportunity there. And the other side too is we're seeing something called agent fatigue. So what should an agent maybe be doing right now in their business that maybe will help combat agent fatigue and will help set them up for the future trends that we're seeing in the real estate place?
Yeah, I think that's a big question. And I think buyer fatigue, agent fatigue, you mentioned, we've been going hard for a while. We've been through a lot in our business. And I want to say this, I think we're in the place we're at in real estate and the economy in this country because of great agents like the folks that listen to this podcast, the contribution you're making. The average home in this country contributes, sale of a new home is $88,000 to the economy. A resale is about half of that, call it $44,000 to the economy. We've seen economic growth coming out of COVID. Couple questions I would pose to you. Having a good answer for are we in a housing bubble? I'm not going to go deep into that today, is going to help you for the next several months as we get through what I'm going to call a turn in the market. I'm going to share one visual. You can go get it at Keep Current Matters. I'm going to give these all to you. You can download these here. But let me show you this one visual that shares why we're in the situation we're in this country right now in real estate. It's a look of single family housing units going all the way back to the 70s. And if you're listening to this and you want to go watch it on YouTube, go do that. But I'll walk you through it. For the past 13 years, coming out of the housing crisis, we have not built enough homes to meet the 50-year average of builds in this country. Meaning the 50-year average in this country is about 1 million homes being built each year. We've been below that for 13 consecutive years. There were literally more homes built in this country in the 70s and 80s than there have been in the last 10 years. What's our issue? It's a supply and demand issue, number one, but home growth has not kept up with population growth. And oh, by the way, we have one of the largest demographics in history, millennials moving through their peak home buying years. They all want to buy right now. So we're seeing this issue, this squeeze based on the lack of available homes. It's causing many people to go, okay, is this a bubble? And I think having a good question of that is going to help going forward. And you can get all of this in what I'm going to share here, and you can download it. But here would be my message. And you said it before, Michael. Things have shown a little bit of slowdown, but what is undeniable right now? Buyers are buying and sellers are selling. I talked about it on the front end. We're on the front end of a turn in real estate. We're coming out of COVID where we're going, hey, things are going to be different, no doubt. And there's concerns this fall about different variations of COVID. And I get that. But we're starting to see this turn. Maybe I'm going to call it into a little bit more normal market. Sometimes in our business, when we come off a high market, we go, all right, this is not going the direction we want. We talk about we need more inventory. Well, now inventory is coming back, and we're like, hey, this home didn't sell in 15 days, so I think the market's slowing down. And that's the reality of where we sit right now. And I believe the best teams, the best people in our business anticipate that turn. They get their plan together. They kind of almost like a race car driver. They come into that turn, that they maybe downshift a little bit. They get their line, and then they accelerate, and the momentum carries them to the next straightaway. And that's why you see in our business, sometimes you look at people and you're like, how did they get there? Not only can you not catch them, you can't even see them with the production they're doing. It's because they're anticipating what's coming, and they're going after it that way.
Yeah, you've done a great job with that. Any other predictions? Any other kind of insights on the near term future, or even looking 2, 3, 4 years ahead? Any quote unquote predictions, right?
Yeah, I think, let me tell you what experts are saying about the real estate market right now. The outlook for interest rates is they're going to go up, right? The only question is when and by how much, but that is the outlook. What's the outlook for home prices? The home price expectation survey just came out a couple of months ago. 5-year outlook, 10% this year, 5% next year, going into normalized appreciation for the remaining years after that. About 3.5%, 3.8% is normal appreciation in this country. No one is calling for the market to depreciate. And yet I hear people anecdotally, friends that I talk to, things like that, we're going to wait till this thing crashes and we're going to do it. That's not in anybody's forecast, partly because of the situation we're in with inventory, and that can't be fixed overnight. My counsel would be, and my prediction would be, anything you buy today, you'll be bragging about in 10 years, no doubt, in real estate. So I think keeping that perspective, not being swayed in our business of opinions. I always say, the question I always ask people is, do you have a relevant market opinion based upon facts? Because there are plenty of opinions in our business. We all know that. But get the facts, get the information, so you're the best informed in your market on all these topics.
Great advice. I have a prediction. That this will be one of our top shared, and literally this is going to be the podcast people listen to over and over again. This is going to be our #1 shared podcast. That's my prediction, because it should be. The advice that you gave to buyers, to sellers, to agents, both for buyers and sellers, and then giving the advice on the trends and everything that's coming along for the buyers. Listen, this doesn't apply to just real estate agents or lenders. This applies to every consumer in America. You have a friend, you have a relative, you should send this to them if they're even considering buying, considering selling. They need to get the advice first. They need to get the information first. And you know what? David Childers and Keeping Current Matters makes it happen. Check him out at keepingcurrentmatters.com. If you want to do a trial, you can go to TRYKCM.com. I highly recommend it. Go check it out. David Childers, once again, awesome to have you as a guest on Referrals Podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you. As always, I love being on, and let's do it again. I love coming back.
Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't gotten tickets to Referral Mastery Summit yet, go to rms21.com. The prices do go up in a couple of days. Check it out at Referral Mastery Summit. That's rms21.com. Here's the deal. 32 breakouts, all on how you can get more referrals in the next 16 to 18 months. And you will walk out with not just one business plan for the end of 21 and 22. You will walk out with 2 completed business plans for the end of 21 and all of 2022. Imagine how great the holidays will be if you are sitting there knowing exactly what you're doing for the next 12 months and maybe the rest of your career to maximize referrals. That's what's going to happen at RMS 21. I hope to see you there, rms21.com. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you always being here. 220,000 plus downloads of Referrals Podcast. I shake my head saying it. For those of you that maybe are taking this in auditorily, I do suggest you go to YouTube to see the charts. And please know that you can always download the visuals from today's session at referralspodcast.com. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you on the next episode of Referrals Podcast.